Yo, what's up? Okay, so I'm just gonna make like a quick 9.25 guide just for the funsies, just so we, keep you guys updated. Plus, I kind of also want to have like a shorter guide, so in case you're curious about a longer, more detailed explanation about everything, I have a 3-hour guide that I can link in the description down below. So I'm just gonna kind of quickly go over everything. Trying to make this video under 10 minutes. So for talents, I would say this is like a pretty good default. You can basically go this every single game without any issue. The talents that I would be looking to swap out would be stuff like Bloodseeker. You can pick this in matchups where maybe you won't get a lot of value out of having a root, or there's a lot of pets out and you might miss this trap. So maybe against like DMO or maybe Unholy DK. But yeah, generally Steel Trap will be the default, I would say. Also Natural Mending in matchups where you don't need camo. But even in matchups where you don't necessarily need camo for the opener, it's still nice to have camo in case your pet dies, because then, whenever your pet dies, you can just feign that camo and then rest your pet from stealth. So it's still nice to have. And then Trailblazer is kind of niche, but it can be okay in twos, in matchups where you need to chase people around pillars and stuff. Then I would say this row is between Tip of the Spear or Flanking Strikes. Now, generally, I would say Tip of the Spear is better in matchups where you'll have a lot of uptime. So that would be things like, TSG, DHDK, Turbo Cleave, stuff like that. Whereas Flanking Strikes is, for the most part, going to be better in matchups where either you'll be CC'd a lot or you won't have that much uptime. So maybe stuff like if you're against the RMP, maybe you're against something like a Thug Cleave, or in matchups where it's going to be very difficult for you to get off the Raptor Strike. So it's stuff like Mage Lock. I would also recommend Flanking Strikes. It's just generally kind of nice, It's like a gap closer, gives you some focus, pretty low CD, and kind of a burst tool as well. Pretty cool. And then for this row, I would say it's either between Wildfire Infusion or Chakrams. Now, I'm a big fan of Chakrams. I think Chakrams is kind of fun. The issue is, though, is that you can get very punished by Chakrams if you ever find yourself in a scenario where you get a kill command proc like this. Because now you have to throw out your bomb, you have to wait until the bomb goes away, right? And now you can throw your bomb away, so you're wasting a lot of your time. So Chakrams is only really good if you manage your bombs well, I would say. Plus, I mean, even if you do all of this mid-max, it's not even that much better than Infusion, and sometimes it's even worse. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend Chakrams, even though I like Chakrams a lot. So I would say probably just go this build, but if you ever catch me on stream, I might just play this build all the time. It's just because I think it's kind of fun, and I'm very biased towards it, but I do think that this one is better, even though I might play something like this, or maybe this. Okay, just a heads up. And then about the PvP talents, I would say Roar of Sacrifice should be a default for the most part. It's pretty good, especially in the meta like this, where having a crit immunity would be pretty fantastic for basically anyone. Roar of Sacrifice, this is only really taken for the shield, since you get a damage reduction every single time you press Feign Death, which is very exciting. The stuff like sub-rogues, fire mages, if they have like a fire, pyroblast in the air, a red paladin casting Templar's Verdict, something like that. You'll get a lot of value out of having the shield. Basically any projectile that is flying in the air, so Chaos Bolt, Frost Bolt as well, very exciting. And then Tamiriel Sting, in general, just a nice default. It's good against the kill target, it's good against the healer, it's good against the off target. You can use it in a lot of ways, so it's just generally good. These 3 talents will be good in basically every single matchup, but there are some matchups where you kind of want to swap it out. So something like a Mending Bandage would be very good into stuff like Asa Rogues, into other Hunters to get their Flayed Shot, or into Feral Druids to get Feral Frenzy, stuff like that. Hunting Pack can be good to, get your healer out of CC if you combine it with Master's Call. Something like Diamond Eyes can be picked into Demon Hunters, or maybe Outlaw Rogue or Fury Warriors in twos. Just to save yourself or your healer from dying, you can just do like a dampening strat, where you just trap the DPS and then you win eventually by doing more damage than the enemy healer can heal in dampening. Very fun. Dragon Skill Armor can be picked into stuff like Shadow Priest or Athlete Warlocks. Trank Darts is really good when it comes to, you know, countering Resto Druids. Wild Kingdom can be good into stuff like TSG, maybe, something like a Turbo if they kill your pet. And that's pretty much it. Knock can also be pretty half decent. Maybe into stuff with something like a Demon Hunter team, you know, maybe you can knock into Harpoon them out of darkness. It's a little bit too niche though. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but it's not bad for sure. But you have to like experiment, you know, yourself. I can't really tell you to like, do I drop tactics for bandage or do you drop Chimerial for bandage? I can't tell you this. It's based on the matchup. It's based on the feel, I would say. For example, if I'm feeling really, really risky, I might go something like this into Resto Druid team, or I might play something like this if I'm feeling a little bit, defensive this day. So it's hard to say which one is going to be the best choice. You could even do something like this if you want to be a really cheeky boy, but I don't know. I'm not really too sure. I would say think about this as your default talent and then swap out either Tactics or Chimerial for either of the other ones, depending on the scenario. And then I want to quickly talk about the conduits over here. So I would say this tree, for the most part, pretty good, will be the most damage you can get. One thing to note though is that if you're playing human with Relle, you actually don't get any value out of this. So you could also go Dauntless Duelist, mainly into teams like Fury Warrior, Demon Hunter intos, kinda, I would say. Just because that's like a matchup where you kind of have a lot of uptime on one guy specifically. So, yeah. But otherwise, you can just go this is like a pretty nice default. And then into rogue teams, I would recommend going this. And if you found out, so here I have Deadly Tantrum, whereas this matchup I have Strength of the Pack. This is because this matchup you have a lot of uptime, so you do a lot of damage, whereas Draven generally into rogue teams, you won't have that much uptime, which means you won't press that many kill commands, which means that I generally think that Deadly Tantrum is a bit better. And you also go this one for the Hunter's Mark conduit because, you know, into rogues you naturally want to press Hunter's Mark anyway. But then also into Hunter teams, I kind of like going Build for War Ambuscade. Just because of this, like, you just do so much damage. I feel like having these buffs up all the time into a Hunter team mirror specifically is just very, very nice. But this doesn't mean that Nadja is bad into Hunters, it just means that I prefer this into Hunters, if that makes sense. But a nice way of thinking about it is like Nadja into everything, and then Draven with Hold Your Ground into rogue teams. And then talking about the gear, so here's my gear, here's my stats. You could go for less haste, but I would say have a build based on kinda like this, where you want to have 20% crit, and then anywhere between, 25 to 30% haste, and then go verse after that. There's no like right and wrong, I could go for 26% haste with 34% verse. I mean, that also, I just like this amount of haste. I'm kind of comfortable with it. And then, whenever I'm playing Insignia, I get a lot of haste, which can be kind of fun. Yeah, that's kind of what I would say about the gear. About the trinkets, generally the ones that I would recommend is just Emblem, Insignia, and then Aegis, if you're playing human, and then also Relle. If you're Orc, though, you kind of always want to have Medallion. Medallion in general is really good at Orc, and so you just swap out, if you're human, you have Relle. If you're playing Orc, you're playing Medallion. There are some matchups where maybe Medallion would be good as a human, but I don't know. I feel like for the most part, you can't really go wrong with Relle. So then, quickly talking about the legendaries, we have Craven, very sick. Just removes every, I think you guys already know what Craven does, right? So it's pretty sick. Alternatively, I would say Call of the Wild is pretty good. So if you want to have Call of the Wild, the way that I would recommend it is just swap places between these two. So you have Unity here, Call it Wild here instead of having it, you know, where you have Unity here. Blah, blah, blah. You just make 2 legendaries if you want to have Call it the Wild. I feel like this is the best legendary that isn't Craven, for sure. Since the issue with Cluster that I have is that a lot of the time, you will very, very rarely get all 3 bomb charges off. So people are actually moving, right? And Cluster is like a moving projectile thing. I can kind of show you what I mean. So like this, right? Like the bombs, you see how long the delay is? And you saw here where they landed in like a row like this. Imagine if I threw a bomb on a person walking this direction. All 3 bombs would have missed. Even if they were like slowed and they were like walking like this, the bombs would have still missed. Like I swear it's not good at all in PvP. Even though you might think it's good because like, wow, with the tier set, it resets, right? In reality, not really that good. Same thing kind of happens with latent poison. Like it just doesn't feel that good to play. That's kind of the issue. It just doesn't feel that good. Like your rotation becomes it becomes more awkward, more convoluted. I don't know. I don't like it. I don't know. It seems a bit sketchy. Maybe in some twos matchup where like you have fun, but I don't know. I would say if you want to have a legendary that isn't Craven, I would say Call of the Wild. You're having the lower CD on Coordinated Assault, on Eagle, Turtle, even Sheeta. Especially Sheeta if you play with Hunting Pack, so it becomes a 1-minute CD. And then also if you have the Conduit, which I don't have, this one, it doesn't have to reduce it by 26. I think it's reduces by, I want to say, I think it's 13 seconds. Or 15 or something like that. I think it becomes a 45-second CD. Or 50, around there. I haven't tested it, but it's around 10 seconds. So I don't think it's worth it. But, I mean, you know, if you want to do that, then go right ahead, I would say. Anything else? Oh yeah, the pets I want to talk about. So, pets you want to have, you know, same thing. Undead pet, pretty good into basically everything. Main reason why is because they can't get hibernated or scare beasted. Can't get sapped, can't get hexed. So into most matchups, can't get polymorphed either. Wow. So it's just pretty decent. Whereas like you have a regular raptor versus something like a ret paladin or priest, since they can shackle and also stun it with Wake of Ashes. And then kind of what I want to have one of these tank pets. So why you want to have the tank pets, you know, into stuff like rogue mage, maybe sometimes can be annoying not having a freedom, but rogue holy priest, pretty good into. So that's when I would recommend having a tank pet. Also note you can use the defensive city while you're in stun, so that's kind of cool. And then quickly talking about the races. So whenever it comes to playing human or orc, the biggest thing that I would say is if you're playing survival, I would recommend human. The biggest reason why is because usually whenever you're trinketing to save yourself. Since your tools as a survival hunter to peel for your team aren't really that good. I mean, like, what can you do? You can trinket to harpoon someone, maybe trinket to stun someone, but I feel like it's just not really enough. Usually you should be fine just pressing Roar of Sacrifice on them to peel, and you can just do that while you're in CC anyway. Whereas like if you're playing something like a BM hunter or MM hunter, I think Orc might be a bit better, just because you have multiple tools of actually trinketing, since you can maybe trinket kick, you can trinket scatter, stuff like that to save, so you have like more options. Also, I think as a survival hunter, you're naturally gonna tank more CC because you're gonna be melee range a bit more. So naturally, you just sit more CC than a BM hunter and MM hunter. But this doesn't mean that it's bad to be human for BM or MM. I think it's just, I mean, because human are orc and they're very, very close to each other when it comes to like their overall strength and weaknesses. So if I would say anything, I would say that for BM, I would say human and orc are basically equal, whereas orc might be a bit better. And for survival, I would say human or orc are basically the same, except that I give the edge to human instead. And then for MM, I do think that orc might be a bit stronger, mainly just because the way that your damage profile works as MM, it is more cooldown orientated. So you might have to trinket to kill someone during your true shot or double tap. Whereas you don't necessarily ever have to do that as survival or MM. Like, if you get CC'd on your Bestial Wrath or Coronal Assault, it's like, who cares? That's not really where most of your damage comes from anyway. So you will rarely trinket to like play aggressive as a survival and a BM hunter. So that's kinda where I give the edge to human Rella, since you'll sit less CC overall, which means that your overall damage is better. Kinda. You know what I mean? But I mean, then again, you know, it depends on the game. Sometimes you might have won the game if you were orc and could have trinketed a fair. Sometimes you maybe would have won the game if you were human because you sat, you know, triple sheep into, I don't know, stuff like that. Maybe you tanked like 15 fairs in a row, which would have been maybe like 10 seconds of longer CC over the course of the entire game, and then maybe you would have lost on the mana. Maybe you got roar cloned as an orc, you know, stuff like that. So I feel like it's really hard to say. Sometimes orc is better, sometimes human is better. Just play whatever you prefer. Those are just my takes on it. Yeah, that's pretty much the guide. Hope you guys enjoyed. Then again, if you want to have a longer guide where I go into more detail about everything, I will link my 3-hour guide down below, because there's a lot of things that I skipped out on. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Peace out. Ciao, ciao. Take care. Bye bye.